So today I'm going to shift things into a direction I normally reserve for private interactions with my close circle of friends. The thing is, there's a giant elephant standing on the map of the United States right now, and it's really hard to focus on anything else going on in the real world. I had a really hard time trying to wrap my focus around what I originally intended to talk to you about today, but I just couldn't. It didn't seem fair because then I started to think if I can't focus, my listeners may be struggling with the same thing. Though I do briefly talk about this concept last episode that sparked today's focus. Last episode, I talked about how sometimes people cannot see the reality right in front of them because they have scales on their eyes, or their view is blocked by their bias in prior judgments of the situation or of people involved in a specific situation. And these biases are informed by where these people get their information and the rhetorical framework of it. So since this is a complex concern, I've decided to break this down into two segments. So you'll get the first part of it today, and then I'll pick back up next episode. So in the next two episodes, you'll gain some insight into how popular and official beliefs are shaped. You'll hear about some firsthand experiences that shaped my free thinking, and you'll get some strategies to turn your free thinking and spirituality into a superpower, if you haven't already.
Do you crave better self-esteem and confidence, but struggle to silence your worry, fear, and insecurity? If you're ready to step into a life you love, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Jennifer DeBellis, award-winning author and speaker. I help women like you overcome fear and doubt to reclaim their self-worth and confidence. I can't wait to share the secrets I've learned on my own healing journey. Are you ready to restore your inner warrior? Then turn off those distractions and tune into this next episode.
I bet you're wondering how I connect this free thinking and spirituality together. Well, for starters, free thinking is a word that's often misunderstood. So I want to kind of set a little foundation here for us when we're thinking about what this concept means. At its foundation, it simply means that you form your own opinions and beliefs rather than just accepting what is popularly or officially believed and taught throughout society. This is especially true in politics and religion. It's not this total rejection of official or common beliefs. Sometimes people want to interchange like acts of rebellion like that as free thinking, and they are not the same. That's another fear tactic to get you to not believe that you can think on your own, which really our brains are a very powerful tool and something that we underestimate. And it's something that I work with my college students on, really getting out there and finding your own information and fact checking and knowing how to fact check and knowing how to scrutinize the sources that we get our information from. Because backtracking to what I just said, we are basing so many of our beliefs and views are influenced by the rhetoric of people who are delivering information to us. So you have to scrutinize that. That doesn't make you a conspiracy theorist. And since I lead a radically spiritual and supernatural life, my acceptance of faith-based principles plays a huge role in my free thinking. So there have been so many times in the past where I've been in certain circles of individuals and they have ridiculed me as being a free thinker, as somebody who is radical and misguided. And hopefully by the end of this conversation, if you aren't already a free thinker, you're entertaining the thought. These past few weeks, I've felt like I'm living in a surreal reality, in a world where right appears to be wrong and wrong appears to be right. And perhaps you're struggling with the same kind of overwhelming feeling. I try not to enter into political discourse in mass media settings. It's kind of like a rule of thumb for me. But I feel like I can't breathe or function with this elephant on my chest. And I know I'm not alone. I know this is probably speaking to you as well. So that's why I'm trying to just take this brave step and just kind of open up a different way of thinking about things that are going on. And maybe this will help you kind of navigate some of this tough terrain. I've spent my entire adult life trying to grow in my faith and spirituality. And I've sat around countless tables debating God's desires for how we should live and love one another. many of these with fellow believers. So, watching my social media feeds recently has been heartbreaking. And what's breaking my heart most is witnessing the lack of humanity and humility that currently divides our culture. I imagine this is also what breaks God's heart most as well. All week, as the divided news and commentary circulated at viral speeds, I couldn't look away, even though I was really tempted to. There were so many times where I was like, I can't keep looking at this. I can't keep trying to see it from different angles. Like these are real individuals that are involved in this. And I fell down many rabbit holes trying to collect all the facts and get good information so that I could make my own sound informed judgments. I didn't want somebody else telling me all I needed to understand or all I needed to know or this is all I need to see, like those horse blinders, that irony that like keeps out some of the stuff, and then that way you don't have to worry about thinking and using your pretty little head to figure anything out. I didn't want to operate that way. I wanted to operate in as full knowledge as I could, and so I really worked to try to set myself up to do that. And as the week progressed, it got harder and harder to get good information. So one of the things that also was kind of playing on a track in the back of my head was George Orwell's 1984, which isn't just a book that I spent a lot of time analyzing. I've taught it in the college setting. So I've had really interesting conversations with young adults and other individuals really struggling through the topics that are in the book. This idea about the dangers of what happens when all of our control and our thinking are taken from us. And in whatever capacity, we're kind of reprogrammed to think and operate in a specific way. And obviously in the novel, which if you've not read it, it's an incredible read, but there's a lot of like pop culture references in there. Probably one of the most popular ones is 2 + 2 is 5. Big Brother is watching you. But the ones that kept replaying in my head the most was war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And this one, who controls the past controls the future. Who controls the present controls the past. And as all of this was playing in a soundtrack in a loop in the back of my thinking, I also couldn't help but recall the crucifixion of Christ and how society ultimately decided his fate. He lost his life by terms that didn't logically fit the situation. And his death sentence wasn't decided by the one in power, the governor, the Roman governor. It was ironically decided by the people in his shared society. Kind of like a jury made up of your peers. So perhaps you share my curiosity about how a society of virtuous people could sentence another human being to a cruel death reserved for the most heinous crimes. And I also want you to think about the environment at these times where everything is playing out in the public sphere. So this is taken to the streets, literally. It's out in the open, and people are watching the violence, and they're cheering it on, crucify him. They're calling the violence to action. So anybody who says what's going on right now in modern times is like this whole new monster, it really isn't a whole new monster. It sounds really familiar. So when Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor of that time, didn't want blood on his hands, so they had Jesus as a prisoner, but he didn't want the blood on his hands.
So I just want to hop in here for a moment and mention that I'm now accepting one-on-one coaching clients. So if you're ready to get clarity and big picture vision on your goals, consider booking a session with me today. Find a link to book your session in the show notes below.
So he let the people decide if they wanted to let him go. Should they let Jesus or Barabbas go? And Barabbas was a convicted criminal. So during these times, it was customary for the Roman governor to allow the people to choose a Jewish prisoner to release before the Feast of Passover, and it was kind of like this goodwill gesture. So Pilate was actually shocked that the people chose to let the criminal go. He even pointed out that the charges being brought against Jesus were like baseless. So he was like trying to say to them, hey, let's just take a look at this. Let's just be logical about this. Let's be rational. And the people just wouldn't listen. They could not hear past their own biases, past the chanting and the kind of the mob mentality, that an energy that was rampant in that environment. But something that stands out to me here, and I want to point it out, is there has to be a part that Pilate knew. He understood the power of the political and religious leaders being able to sway the general public in their beliefs and opinions. So, something that you should probably know about the story, if you're not familiar with it, is just a week prior, the general public loved Jesus. They were welcoming him into this town as the Messiah. He was this mystery man. He was preaching all of these really like good messages, and just like he was like this breath of fresh air. And to the religious, he was speaking about a lot of different Old Testament prophetic things that he was saying are coming to pass right now. He was speaking all of these messages that were instilled with hope, and the people loved it. And so here is the week before, the people love him, and then the leaders, the political and the religious leaders, start to do their thing. Sound familiar? So now there's all this stuff going on behind the scenes that now come to the end of the week. He's taken into captivity, and now the crowd comes together, and because it's right before the Feast of the Passover, so they're expecting, hey, we're going to get to decide who gets to go free here. And there's all this buzz, and there's all these people, and there's an intriguing aspect about this public moment in this controversy of who made up this crowd. So it's unclear how many of the people present in the crowd were the same exact individuals who were following him around all week and just being totally inspired by what he was saying, and how many of them weren't. So one thing that there's a lot of speculation between scholars about is the large numbers in the crowd being summoned by the Jewish leaders to come and protest against Jesus. So they were literally invited, encouraged to come and speak out against Jesus because they didn't believe that he was their Messiah. So come, speak out, let your voice be heard. And now imagine this huge crowd, thousands, probably tens of thousands of individuals in this assembly of people. You don't have to share my faith in Christianity to see the connections between the current United States affairs and historical times like this. I'm not suggesting there's a direct comparison between all of those who have lost their lives in each of these instances. I'm just saying the story as a whole, the plot structure, has a lot of similarities. I want to also draw a few connections or correlations between the present and the past events that to me are these kind of like red flag moments about history repeating itself. So I come from a spiritual background that believes we're supposed to follow the laws of the land as long as those laws do not contradict God's laws. So this is that place in limbo where I'm like, things are kind of complicated that are going on in the world. Things are kind of complicated when I've studied these other moments of history, or even these other historically inspired works of literature. So you can imagine my conflicted emotions and how current immigration crackdown events are unfolding. Yes, this is all very complex and it's complicated. It has a lot of moving parts. And, for someone like myself with this kind of faith-based part of my thinking, I'm conflicted in a lot of different things. And I'm recognizing like this is far more complex than people are making it seem, like it's just black or white. And a lot of the different opinions and a lot of different judgments circulating, not just socially, through different people's, using their social media as their own platform to give voice to their opinions, but coming down from every single part of the mass media chain, all the way down from how we're getting the news, and then how that news is being kind of filtered and processed through the individual listeners who are receiving this information. There's a lot of complexity there that can't be simplified. down to one thing. So if you're expecting me to come to some finite point here in this episode or the next episode that's going to tell you exactly what you should see, exactly how you should look, you're probably going to be disappointed, because that's not the purpose of what we're talking about here. So when it comes back to that faith-based part, biblical teachings are very specific about God's commands for us to treat foreigners like they're our own. And for clarity, this specifically applies to acting with compassion rather than fear toward refugees and individuals who are seeking asylum. So it's very particular. So this is why it kept coming to mind. All of these different things kept all coming to mind and kind of forming all one big rock in my thinking, is because these are all interconnected. It's like, that's familiar. Where do I know that from? Where do I know that from? And it's just, I couldn't help. But in my meditations, all these things kept collecting. And now I've got this huge boulder in my thinking. And, I'm still working through how to parse all the meaning. But when we fast forward to the modern church and nation, they're divided on immigration. We know that, right? And when we talk about the evangelical circles in particular, many of these groups believe in a balanced reform and middle ground. So where borders are secured and legal pathways are forged to help undocumented individuals seek asylum and citizenship. This is where my own free thinking and spirituality sometimes clashes with other popular views on this issue. And I've been really meditating on and trying to seek the answers, not according to just my own free thinking, but everything I want to align with my faith. I don't want to get to the end of my life, whenever that is, and I hope it's a long way away. I don't want to get to the end of my life and find myself on the wrong side of anything. My whole existence, no matter what the topic is, fill in the blank, it doesn't matter. I want to end up on the right side of things. So that's kind of what I have been trying to do with my thinking, is put all these things down in front of me in my thinking and think about, how do I see this in the right light? How do I see this in the right way? And I should probably point out that my husband is an immigrant. He was not born in this country. He was born in Italy. So he is a legal citizen of the United States. He went through the process and he's been here for several years, but he is an immigrant. And so now, and I'm going to get into this next episode, we're kind of thinking about, there's so many angles that this is very personally relatable. He has a mom who is still alive, who's been in this country for decades. She still speaks broken English. She sticks out as a foreigner. And so I was just visiting with her the other day and we were talking about just be careful when you're out there. And you can't just say, well, as long as you do all the right things, that's not good advice anymore. Of course we're all concerned. I don't know what the climate is out there. I don't know how it's going to be if I find myself in that situation and I'm just trying to go about my business. And so it's a really valid concern. And if it doesn't apply to you personally, maybe you can't personally relate to how some of that fear and worry starts to creep up if it pertains to you or pertains to your loved ones. So this is kind of where I've also found myself thinking about my loved ones and how it's really hitting home, and trying to reconcile all these thoughts while also trying to not sleepwalk through these really important things that are happening and reshaping our culture. I don't know that we can put our heads together right now in the small space that we have here and the time that we have to do it. But I think that what I hope to come out of some of these conversations that we can have is just expand our understandings, but also really strengthen our free thinking. And if you are a spiritual person like I am, is how do I bring that free thinking and my spirituality into unity with one another so that I am functioning like a healthy thinking and healthy acting individual. That is sometimes just one of the most important self-love steps that we can take in our everyday life, is just aligning these types of things so that we can actually function optimally and we can function in a healthy way. I'd like to close things today by just inviting you to also meditate on where you stand on this topic. Where you stand on this topic, not where other people are telling you to stand on the topic. And every single thing that you kind of bring out, take everything under advisement. I mean, think about if you were on trial. Let me back that up. Let me change it just a little bit. Let me do a 180 here. Think about if you were the jury representing one of your loved ones. So now you're overseeing a case for somebody who you love dearly. Now you have a different kind of sensibility and sensitivity to the information that you collect. So I want you to do some light fact checking here. And I want you to really kind of know, like, what is informing your beliefs and views on all these different things. And beyond what's influencing you, like, how have these things in the past, or how are they now shaping and reshaping your moral fiber? So your values and your beliefs, how are those being shaped and reshaped during this time right now? Every place your spidey little senses start to like tingle, I want you to ask yourself, why? Why is that tingling? So remember, those spidey senses that start to tingle and start to rise up, that's usually like a spiritual, electric, energetic connection. And, there's no one reason why that happens. That's one way our body connects to the spirit and the mind. And so we can't ignore our physical reaction to something that we sense in the spirit or we sense in our emotions. And is there conviction in there for you? Is that why you're getting that tingly, spidey sense? Is it a warning that you shouldn't ignore? Is it something that conflicts with your own moral fiber? So like I have found myself experiencing that on so many capacities, on so many levels from both sides in this, find myself kind of standing in this mucky middle ground where I'm like, oh, right, that's conflicting with my own moral fiber. That's conflicting with what I know to be reality, what I know to be true. And so I'm inviting you to kind of think about the same thing. And I want you to remember that this is your self-love homework. You are trying to see this through a juror's eyes and just imagining that, wow, whatever the outcome is of all the findings, there's a judgment that's going to be made at the end, and that is going to have consequences attached to it for the case, for the outcome of that loved one. So if you really think about it in that kind of perspective, it's going to open things up, but my intention for you is to really be inserted in it. Because when you're inserted in it in these ways that I'm trying to help invite you to do, then you're going to feel that those areas of self-love that are weak, and those areas that are thriving, and those areas that might need a little TLC, might need a little bit of recalibration, whatever it is, you're going to be able to see that in a different way. So I'm not asking you to change your opinions about anything out there. That is literally up to your free thinking. I'm asking you to think about a different way of filtering all the information, of collecting and filtering all the information that you have. So then, next episode, we'll pick back up on this and move into the topic of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. So be prepared for some story time tea on my firsthand experiences with violence and injustice.
Well, girl, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, follow my channel and share it with friends who also want to restore their self-worth and confidence. And if you're ready to get clarity and big picture vision on your goals, consider booking a one-on-one coaching session with me. Find a link in the show notes below to book a session. And as you go through your week, may your empowered spirit, heart, and mind guide you. Catch new episodes every Saturday. Ciao.